Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. And thank you for trying to pronounce my name. It's been an endless challenge for lots of people. But yeah, so normally people just call me Vytautas. I'm an artist and designer, and I'm joined by Claire, who's, we conceived the project together, and she's an AI researcher with a passion for art and aesthetical beauty of smart home and other connected things. I'm joking a little bit. Anyway, we didn't prepare slides specifically, so we will also just run our video because it's nicer to look at cats toying around with Roombas than to look at us. Let me just quickly share the screen. Okay. Oh, there we go. Wait a second. I think. Okay, I have to. I just realized that I never shared the screen with maybe Claire, you can share the screen with the video, because I've never shared the screen before from this computer, and I realized that I have to give access.
Yeah, I will then share the screen.
Yeah, please.
Over 20 years ago, we coined the term the Internet of Things.
Can
For the
you
very
mute the
first
sound?
time, we acknowledged that things, like humans, belong online.
Yeah.
They can communicate, exchange, and experience the world as expressed in metadata and numbers. Our homes have become a sanctuary.
Great, thanks. Anyway, so unfamiliar convenient is essentially an installation that aims to shed light on the frictions between two often coupled definitions, which is the Internet of Things and the smart home. And our idea is that because smart home is such a kind of corporate concept of convenience and of what, defining people by users and defining the objects as problem solvers, it has kind of undermined the potential and the possibilities behind the concept of the Internet of Things, which talks about the society of objects. So the project consists of a voice assistant, which you can see in the video at the moment, and which defines the home by what it hears offline and scrapes online. So essentially, as you ask a question to the voice assistant, it will dissect it into keywords and then basically try to sort of to form a semantic graph of those words that it extracts and kind of look them up online and look for different concepts, which means that essentially what you tell it, it kind of defines it as what the concept of a home is for the voice assistant itself. And then we have a Roomba, which is a sort of a modified version of a Roomba, which is the spiritual explorer, which kind of shares a different set of inherent properties to those of the voice assistant. And they are kind of interconnected in the way in which Roomba's trajectories, Roomba's travel trajectories mess with the voice assistant's brain, which means that the semantic graph that is constructed with the help of artificial intelligence inside the voice assistant through the interactions that we make with it will be later on influenced by Roomba's trajectories, and they kind of form this weird coexistence in which they kind of define, first of all, not what they're supposed to do, but what is home for, based on the interactions and the encounters that they have. So the project builds on the domestic space as an experimental site for non-formative or like non-normative relationships between various entities inhabiting it. So whether that would be pets, humans, other species, or yeah. And we ask sort of, instead of making these objects do something, we ask them through those objects, we ask what is home and what does it mean to be a connected object in that home? And sort of how can we open smart object behaviors beyond utility? So through the journey, these two clumsy cartographers co-construct their own semantic space and their own semantic concept of a home, despite being constantly confronted with the volatility of the territory they explored and limited in their tools for understanding it. So we very much emphasize during this project, which is it's a fully functional installation. We kind of understand the limits of these devices and kind of champion them as their own way of seeing the home space, and then opening up questions on whether they actually should do as the objects that are sold to people, whether they should do what they're currently doing, or whether within their concept and their limits, they could be much more. So unfamiliar convenient builds on, I guess it builds partially on Bernard Stiegler's ideas and attempts to at least remotely suggest that it is time for smart objects to be considered as a sort of an emerging species. We don't think that it should be taken as a sort of, how would you say, call for algorithmic autonomy to make decisions within the corporate agendas, but instead we kind of try to open up these devices and try to sort of set this, how would you say, like a framework or a landscape or a homescape of exploration with a certain concept such as open-endedness, which maybe Claire will talk about a little bit if we have time. So basically bringing open-ended exploration to domestic smart objects, we want to foster this critical gaze and attentive care, and also introduce new perspectives towards the coexistence with our more than human surroundings, and including but not limited to this Anthropocene layer that we're contributing to with each and every smart object that becomes part of it. So how can we kind of build more interesting relationships with the things we make and beyond? Claire, do you have something to add?
You have 1 more minute.
So yeah, open-endedness. So in very short, it's AI research targets emergent process which display some kind of creative divergence. So continually creating new and ever more complex entities. So evolutionary process creating life form on Earth are an illustration of such a property. And so indeed, it's one of the concepts that we are drawing upon to interrogate how artificial agency can be freed from user-centeredness and techno-optimist metrics, both in the terms of goal-directed and explorative process, but also regarding their belief, choice, and representation. And at the core of this widening process, we aim to explore, and also critically tied to the notion of artificial smartness, arises the painful question of how artificial agent could form and share such emancipated semantic space. Because the notion of meaning seems to require a situated co-construction process with which has a developmental history and take place at multiple scale, and also is usually embedded in a rich sociocultural environment. So this was, of course, is still a challenge in when we think about artificial agent, and is one of the points we wanted to explore. And yeah, as Vytautas said, also tangentially, the project questioned the limit of machine understanding and the wobbliness of our modes of access to knowledge, may they be online or offline, intuitive or quantitative, which are both aspects that those two creatures are reflecting. So yeah, I think I can stop there because I guess the time is almost up.
Thank you. Thank you. That was so great.